Lena had always been the kind of person who carried her heart in her hands, yet never allowed anyone too close. She believed that happiness was something you could control, something you could build on your own. But as she walked through the city on a gray afternoon, her mind heavy with unanswered questions, she realized that something was missing. Something deeper than the noise of work and the distractions of life. She had been alone for so long, but it wasn't loneliness that gnawed at her. It was the emptiness, the absence of unconditional love. The one thing she hadn't known she was craving. And then, as if the universe had been waiting for her to notice, she found herself standing in front of the shelter door, her hand trembling as it hovered over the handle. Inside, behind the bars of a cage, a pair of eyes caught hers. Eyes that, for a brief moment, seemed to understand the same ache she carried inside. It was then that Lena realized she wasn't just looking for a pet. She was searching for someone to heal with, someone to share her heart with. Lena had always been a woman who believed in the magic of beginnings. She loved the idea of fresh starts, of wiping the slate clean, of opening doors to the unknown. But somewhere along the way, somewhere between moving to a new city and burying herself in work, Lena had lost that sense of wonder. Now, in the small, quiet apartment she had rented in a bustling city that still felt unfamiliar, she found herself yearning for something that would fill the emptiness that seemed to cling to the walls. It was the stillness that unsettled her the most. The silence in the evenings when she came home from work, the empty corners of the apartment, the lack of sound when she woke up in the mornings. She was a solitary person by nature, but even solitude could turn into loneliness when it was stretched too long. She had no family nearby, no friends to call after hours. Just a job that occupied her time but never quite made her feel complete. One late afternoon, as she scrolled through her phone, she came across an advertisement for a local animal shelter. "Adopt, don't shop," it read, along with pictures of several dogs looking up at the camera with big, hopeful eyes. Some were fluffy and energetic, others older and more subdued, but each one had a face that spoke of longing, of wanting, of waiting for someone to choose them. Lena hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. She had thought about adopting a dog before but always talked herself out of it. She wasn't sure she could give a dog the life it deserved. But today felt different. The ache inside her heart seemed to grow with every passing minute, and as she clicked on the link and began reading through the profiles of the dogs, something inside her shifted. These animals, each with their own story, deserved love. They needed someone to trust. And in that moment she realized that maybe, just maybe, she needed someone to trust too. Lena made a quick decision. She sent an inquiry to the shelter and was surprised when they responded almost immediately, offering to set up an appointment for the very next day. The next morning she took a deep breath and found herself standing outside the shelter, her nerves bubbling in her stomach. She had never owned a dog before. She had read books, watched countless videos, but it still felt like an unknown. She was stepping into a new chapter, and the uncertainty was both thrilling and terrifying. When she walked through the doors of the shelter, the smell of damp fur and cleaner hit her first. The dogs were barking, some were jumping excitedly at the bars of their cages, others were sitting quietly, their eyes searching for attention. The shelter worker greeted her warmly, introducing herself as Kate. She explained the various dogs in the shelter, their temperaments and needs. But when Kate mentioned a dog in the back of the shelter, Lena's heart skipped a beat. "We've got a special one in the back," Kate said, her voice lowering slightly. "Her name's Bella. She's a bit more reserved than the others, but she's been with us for a while now. She's a rescue, came from a rough situation. She's got trust issues, but if you've got patience, I think she could be a great fit." Lena's curiosity piqued, and she followed Kate through the narrow hallways of the shelter, the sounds of barking growing fainter the further they walked. They reached the last kennel at the end of the row. Inside, curled up in the corner, was a dog that caught Lena off guard. She wasn't the fluffy, energetic puppy Lena had envisioned when she thought about adopting. She was a medium-sized dog with matted fur, a mixture of brown and white, and a coat that looked as though it hadn't been properly groomed in months. At first glance, Bella appeared completely uninterested in the world around her. Her head was tucked under her paws, her body rigid, and she barely acknowledged their presence. Lena hesitated, unsure of what to do or say. She had seen so many dogs excited for attention, jumping at the bars of their cages, wagging their tails in greeting, but Bella was still, almost too still. "She's been through a lot," Kate said quietly, noticing Lena's hesitation. "She was abandoned in the streets and came to us very fearful. She's slowly warming up to people, but it'll take time. She's not one to trust easily." Lena knelt down beside the kennel, careful to keep her distance but not wanting to appear distant. She could feel her heart aching for Bella, for the dog that had been through so much and was still carrying the weight of her past. Slowly, Lena reached her hand through the bars, just enough to offer a gesture of peace. Bella didn't react right away. For a long moment, there was nothing but the quiet sound of the shelter's ventilation system humming in the background. Then, just as Lena was about to pull her hand back, Bella lifted her head, her dark eyes meeting Lena's. It wasn't the enthusiastic, tail-wagging greeting she'd imagined. Instead, it was a quiet, almost cautious look, a gaze that seemed to search for something in Lena. Lena's heart clenched. There it was. That unspoken connection. Bella's eyes weren't just wary, they were full of unvoiced questions. "Who are you? Can I trust you? Will you stay?" Lena held her breath, waiting. After a few seconds, Bella slowly, carefully, stretched her neck forward, nudging her nose toward Lena's fingers. The touch was tentative, a whisper of a connection. Lena didn't move, afraid that any sudden motion might break this fragile moment. And then, as if to confirm what Lena was feeling, Bella's tail gave a single hesitant wag. Tears welled up in Lena's eyes. She had no words for what she was feeling. It was as if the universe had finally brought her to this moment, this meeting between two souls who were both broken, but still searching for something. A sense of belonging, of hope, of healing. In that moment, Lena knew with certainty that she couldn't walk away. This dog, this beautiful, uncertain creature, needed her as much as she needed the dog. Kate smiled softly, sensing the bond that had already started to form. "I think she's chosen you." Lena nodded, swallowing back the lump in her throat. She stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact with Bella. "I want to adopt her." Kate's smile widened, and she turned to fetch the necessary paperwork. As she walked away, Lena knelt down again, this time opening the gate to Bella's kennel. The dog took a small step back, uncertain, but Lena extended her hand, palm out, slowly moving closer. Bella watched her for a moment, her body tense. Then, with another hesitant movement, she took a cautious step forward, nudging her head into Lena's open palm. It was the start of something. It wasn't the usual first meeting that one might expect with a dog. There were no ecstatic jumps or excited barking. But it was enough. It was a connection built on patience, on trust, and on a shared understanding that neither of them were whole yet, but together they could begin the slow process of healing. As Lena gently stroked Bella's matted fur, she whispered softly, "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm here now." In that moment, Bella's eyes softened, and for the first time since Lena had arrived at the shelter, she let out a deep sigh. It was the kind of sigh that spoke of relief, of letting go. It wasn't a sudden transformation. There were still fears to overcome, both for Bella and for Lena. But it was the beginning of something beautiful, something they would both cherish forever. The spark of connection had been lit. And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. The first few weeks of Bella's new life with Lena were filled with uncertainty. It wasn't the perfect fairy tale beginning Lena had imagined. The excitement of the first meeting had given way to the reality of living together, day after day. There were moments of joy, yes, but there were also moments of frustration. Moments that made Lena wonder if she was truly cut out for this. The chewed-up shoes were the first clue that Bella was still very much in survival mode. Lena's favorite pair of boots, comfortable and well-worn, lay in pieces by the door one morning, the laces frayed and the leather chewed beyond recognition. Bella stood nearby, her head lowered in what could have been shame, but Lena wasn't sure if Bella even understood the concept of shame. Lena sighed, running a hand through her hair. She had hoped that with time Bella would settle into the routine of their life together, but it seemed that the dog's old habits were hard to shake. "Why do you keep doing this?" Lena murmured, her voice a mix of confusion and frustration. Bella didn't react, instead lowering her gaze to the floor as if trying to avoid eye contact. It was the same look Lena had seen when they first met, the cautious, unsure gaze of a dog who had learned not to trust. But Lena wasn't about to give up. She hadn't come this far only to walk away when things got tough. She reminded herself that Bella had come from a place of fear, a place where her survival had come before everything else. She was learning to trust, and Lena knew it would take time. Over the next few days, Lena took Bella out for walks more frequently, hoping the exercise and fresh air would help calm her. Sometimes Bella would pull on the leash, her senses heightened by every passing scent. Other times she would freeze in place, refusing to move. It was as if Bella was trying to read the world, to figure out what was safe and what wasn't. Lena tried not to rush her, instead letting Bella set the pace. The walks became their quiet time together, a chance to observe and understand one another. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Lena returned to find Bella barking excitedly at the door. She laughed, a sound that felt strange and freeing after a long, grueling day. "You're really getting the hang of this, huh?" Bella's tail wagged furiously, her whole body vibrating with excitement. Lena bent down, her knees creaking slightly, and ruffled Bella's fur. The warmth that spread through her chest was something she hadn't realized she'd been missing. The dog's enthusiasm was infectious. But then, just as quickly as the excitement came, it faded into something else, something more uncertain. The next night, Bella barked again, but this time it wasn't playful. It was sharp, insistent. It was the kind of barking that made Lena pause, her heart sinking. What was wrong? She hurried to the door, her stomach twisting with worry. Bella stood near the door, staring at it with wide, unblinking eyes. Lena cautiously approached, and when she opened the door, nothing was there. Just the quiet hum of the streetlights outside. She stepped back, confused, but Bella didn't move. Instead, she stood rigid, her body tense, her ears perked up as if something, or someone, was lurking just out of sight. For the next few nights, it happened again. Bella's barking grew louder, more frantic. Lena couldn't understand it. She had no idea what the dog was reacting to. It seemed irrational, like Bella's fear had crept back to the surface without warning. Lena's patience, which had been her guiding force in the beginning, started to crack. Was this the right decision? She wondered. What if Bella never truly felt safe? One evening, after a long day of trying and failing to calm Bella down, Lena sank onto the couch in exhaustion. Bella, as usual, lay beside her, her head resting on Lena's lap. For a moment, everything was still. There were no barks, no anxious pacing, just the sound of their breathing in the quiet room. Lena let out a long breath, her fingers gently scratching behind Bella's ears. And then something shifted. Bella let out a small, contented sigh, the kind of sigh that spoke volumes. For the first time in days, her body relaxed completely. It was as if she had let go of whatever tension had been holding her back. Lena's heart softened as she looked down at the dog, realizing that this small, quiet moment of peace, was a victory. Bella was still learning, still adjusting, but she was here. She was with Lena, and that was a huge step. The days that followed weren't perfect, but they were better. Lena made an effort to stay consistent in her routines. She would take Bella for longer walks in the mornings and at night, hoping the exercise would help calm her nerves. They practiced basic commands together: sit, stay, come. At first, Bella was hesitant, unsure if Lena's voice was one she could trust. But with time, Bella began to respond more. She would sit when Lena asked, and she would come when Lena called her name. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Bella's past fears surfaced like ghosts, but with every small victory their bond grew stronger. One evening, Lena sat on the couch with Bella beside her, the two of them in their quiet, comforting routine. She looked down at the dog and smiled softly. "You're doing so well," Lena whispered. "I'm proud of you." Bella's tail gave a small thump against the floor, a gesture that was both subtle and powerful. It was the first time Lena had seen her dog express contentment like that. It wasn't exuberant or wild, it was calm. It was trust. In that moment, Lena realized something. She was growing too. The doubts she had at the beginning, the questions about whether she was the right person for Bella, whether Bella would ever feel truly safe, were fading. She was learning as much as Bella was. Patience wasn't just a skill she needed to offer Bella. It was something she needed to practice for herself as well. She had to trust in the process, in the small steps they took every day toward building a life together. She had to trust that the bond they were forming would only deepen with time. There were still struggles ahead. There were still nights when Bella would bark at nothing, when anxiety would grip her small frame. There would be times when the chewed-up shoes appeared again, when Lena's patience would be tested. But through it all, there was an unspoken understanding that neither of them was alone in this journey. They were both learning, both growing, and most importantly, both trusting. Lena leaned down and kissed the top of Bella's head, her heart full. "Together," she whispered. "We'll do this together." And in that moment, with the warm weight of Bella's body pressed against her side, Lena knew that there was no turning back. No matter how hard it got, they had started this journey together, and that was enough to make her believe they could weather anything. As the weeks passed, the growing pains of their new life together began to settle into something more familiar. The days of chewed-up shoes and sleepless nights were becoming less frequent, though there were still moments when Bella's past fears resurfaced. But now, with each passing day, Lena began to see a different side of Bella, a quieter, more trusting side that was beginning to emerge. It was one rainy afternoon when Lena truly realized just how far they had come. She had returned home from work, her mind heavy with the stress of a long day. The office had been a whirlwind, back-to-back meetings, deadlines piling up, emails left unanswered. Her nerves were frayed, and the last thing she wanted was to face the solitude of her apartment. But as the door clicked shut behind her, she found herself greeted by Bella, standing in the hallway with her tail wagging tentatively, her eyes wide with that ever-present, cautious curiosity. "Hi, sweet girl," Lena murmured, dropping her bag by the door. Bella patted over to her, nuzzling Lena's hand gently. The gesture, so simple yet so full of tenderness, made Lena's chest tighten. Bella had always been a little reserved when it came to physical affection, but today there was no hesitation. She was offering comfort in her own way. Lena sank onto the couch, her body heavy with exhaustion. Bella, as if sensing her need for comfort, jumped up beside her, curling into a ball against Lena's side. She didn't move for the longest time, simply staying there, her body warm and reassuring, her steady breathing a calm rhythm against Lena's own racing heart. Lena let out a long sigh, closing her eyes. The rain outside had turned into a steady downpour, the rhythmic sound of water hitting the windows providing a soothing backdrop. There was a kind of quiet peace in the air now, one that felt different from the quiet moments of the past. This wasn't just silence. It was the quiet of two souls sharing a space, of trust growing where there had once been uncertainty. For the first time in weeks, Lena allowed herself to simply be. She wasn't thinking about work or the future, or the things that she had to get done. She was here in this moment with Bella, and it felt like everything else could wait. As the evening wore on, the two of them stayed on the couch, watching the rain fall outside. Bella shifted every so often, settling closer to Lena's side with each movement, her fur warm and comforting against Lena's skin. Every now and then Bella's head would lift, and Lena would meet her gaze. Those eyes that had once been full of hesitation and fear were now full of a quiet understanding. Bella was learning to trust Lena more with every passing day. And in turn, Lena was learning to open her heart wider, allowing herself to feel the comfort that only Bella could give. But it wasn't just Bella who was healing. Lena could feel the weight of the world lifting off her shoulders every time she let herself be still in Bella's presence. The dog's quiet companionship became a refuge, an anchor that kept her grounded when everything else felt uncertain. The following week brought a different kind of challenge, one Lena hadn't anticipated. She woke up one morning with a deep ache in her chest, a heaviness that seemed to settle in her heart and lungs. It wasn't physical, but it was undeniable. It was the kind of ache that seemed to tug at her from the inside out, a sorrow that had no clear source. The past few days had been hard. Her boss had been distant, and the pressure at work felt unbearable. Her old friends had reached out, but the distance between them, both physical and emotional, felt wider than ever. She felt alone. By the time she walked through the door that evening, she didn't feel like herself. She didn't have the energy to pretend she was fine, to smile and act as if everything was okay. Bella greeted her at the door as she always did, her eyes bright but concerned. The moment Lena bent down to pet her, the dog's gentle nudge seemed to say it all. "I'm here. You're not alone." Lena sat down on the couch and Bella climbed up beside her, as if understanding that today was different. She didn't bark or jump around, she simply laid her head in Lena's lap, offering her quiet companionship. Lena ran her fingers through the dog's fur, the simple act calming her in a way she couldn't explain. She closed her eyes, exhaling deeply. The weight of the world didn't disappear, but Bella's presence made it feel less crushing. It was as if the dog had an innate understanding of how to soothe, how to offer comfort without demanding anything in return. It was in moments like these, when words were unnecessary, that Lena truly felt the depth of their bond. Bella didn't need her to be perfect. She didn't need her to have it all together. She simply needed her to show up, to be present, to love her the way she deserved. And in return, Bella offered her the kind of unconditional love that made everything else seem a little easier to bear. That night, as Lena curled up in bed, Bella nestled beside her, as if sensing the need for closeness. The dog's warmth was a comfort that transcended anything Lena had known. She wasn't just a dog, she was a companion, a constant in a world that often felt uncertain. The days that followed weren't without their struggles. Bella's occasional barking still startled Lena in the middle of the night, and there were moments when the dog's anxiety seemed to flare up again. But with each passing day, Lena found herself more attuned to Bella's needs. She recognized the signs of anxiety, the moments when Bella needed extra comfort, extra reassurance. And in turn, Bella seemed to grow more secure in their routine, more willing to lean into Lena when she sensed that the human needed comfort in return. It was during one of these moments of shared solace that Lena truly understood the depth of their connection. One rainy night, when the storm had turned the world outside into a blur of gray, Lena sat on the couch, staring out the window. Bella lay at her feet, her eyes closed in peaceful repose. The stillness between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was a stillness filled with trust and understanding, the kind that could only come from spending time together and learning each other's rhythms. Lena took a deep breath, letting the peace of the moment settle in. She had always been afraid of feeling vulnerable, afraid of needing someone else. But here, with Bella, she felt something she had never quite felt before: acceptance. Bella wasn't asking for anything more than Lena's presence, her care. And in return, Lena had found a source of love and companionship that healed her in ways she had never imagined possible. With Bella by her side, Lena was learning to be more patient with herself. She was learning that it was okay to not have all the answers, to not always be strong. Sometimes, it was enough to simply be, to allow yourself to feel the comfort of another being who truly understood what it meant to be present. And as the days turned into weeks, Lena knew one thing for certain: Bella had become more than just a pet. She had become a friend, a confidant, a source of strength in the most unexpected of ways. Together they were healing. Together they were learning what it meant to trust and to love. And in those moments of quiet, shared comfort, Lena realized that this was exactly the kind of companionship she had been searching for all along. It had been a few months since Lena and Bella had formed their quiet, beautiful rhythm together. The days were full of routines, the familiar sound of Bella's paws patting across the hardwood floor, the playful bark when Lena returned home from work, the peaceful silence that settled between them when the world outside became too loud. They were inseparable, the bond between them so much stronger than either could have imagined in the early days of their journey together. But life, as it often does, threw a challenge their way, a test that would push the boundaries of their trust, and force both Lena and Bella to confront their deepest fears. It began one rainy afternoon when Lena was rushing to finish a report for work. She had gotten home later than usual, the rain slowing her drive, the weight of an approaching deadline looming heavily over her. Bella, as usual, greeted her at the door with excitement, tail wagging, eyes bright. But there was something in Bella's demeanor that Lena immediately noticed, a restlessness and unease that wasn't usually there. Lena knelt down to pet Bella, but the dog flinched back, her body tense, her ears flattened. It wasn't like Bella to pull away, not after months of bonding, of learning to trust and settle into the routine. For a brief moment, Lena froze, her heart beginning to race as she scanned Bella's face. "Bella?" Lena asked softly, trying to catch the dog's gaze. "What's wrong, girl?" Bella didn't respond. She backed away a few steps, her eyes darting around the apartment as if she was searching for something, or someone. Lena's heart dropped, her mind spinning. Was something wrong? Had she forgotten to lock the door? Was there an intruder? The thought made her pulse quicken, but she pushed the worry down. She was being paranoid. Still, Bella seemed agitated, pacing in circles, her breathing shallow and quick. Lena stood up, feeling a tightness in her chest. Something wasn't right, and she couldn't shake the feeling of impending dread. The situation escalated quickly. Bella's barking grew louder, sharper, and she bolted toward the door, pawing at it frantically. Lena's chest tightened as she rushed to her side, but Bella wasn't calming down. She continued to bark, her whole body tense, her eyes wide with panic. "Shh, Bella, it's okay," Lena whispered, crouching down beside her. "It's okay, girl. You're safe here." But the words were hollow, and the unease that had gripped Bella wasn't going away. In fact, it seemed to be escalating. Lena felt the prickle of anxiety crawl up her spine. She couldn't understand why Bella was acting this way. They had been through so much together. Hadn't they reached a place where they trusted each other completely? Suddenly, Bella darted toward the window, her barking now frantic. She jumped at the glass as if trying to get a better view of something outside. Lena hurried over to the window, pulling back the curtain, her heart racing. But there was nothing out there, just the gray, rainy street and the familiar outline of parked cars. Confusion and fear clouded Lena's mind as she looked back at Bella. It was almost as if the dog was reacting to something that Lena couldn't see, something that wasn't obvious to her. Bella's fear was palpable, raw, unfiltered, and it set Lena's heart racing with the urgency of something unknown. Then it happened. Bella bolted toward the door again, scratching at the wood with her paws. Lena jumped to her feet, grabbing Bella's collar in an attempt to calm her down, but the dog pulled away with surprising strength. Bella growled, low and guttural, the sound unfamiliar and unsettling. She was no longer the cautious, sweet dog Lena had come to love. This was a dog consumed by fear, consumed by something that Lena couldn't understand. Lena's chest tightened with panic. "Bella?" she called, her voice trembling. "What's wrong? Please, talk to me." But Bella wasn't listening. She was out of control now, running in circles, her barking reaching an almost deafening pitch. Lena felt helpless as she watched her dog spiral into distress. She tried everything she could think of, calling Bella's name, offering treats, even trying to grab the leash to take her outside for a walk to distract her. But nothing worked. And then the doorbell rang. It was a small sound, but to Lena, it felt like a thunderclap. Bella's barking shifted to a new level, a frenzied, panicked sound that echoed in Lena's ears. The dog rushed toward the door, scratching and whining, her eyes wild. Lena stood frozen, every part of her screaming to run, to leave, to escape whatever this was. But she couldn't. She had to be strong for Bella. She had to figure out what was happening. Heart racing, Lena stepped cautiously toward the door, wondering if the sudden appearance of someone outside had triggered Bella's anxiety. But as she opened it, there was no one there. Just the cold, empty hallway. Confusion and fear swirled in Lena's chest. Bella, still frantic, had calmed just slightly, but her eyes were wide and filled with terror. She was trembling, her body low to the ground, still on high alert. Lena's mind was reeling. She had no idea what was going on. Was it someone outside? Had Bella been triggered by something she couldn't understand? Lena gently reached for Bella again, her voice now soft and calm, but she could feel the tremor in her own hands. She couldn't help but wonder, had they made it this far only to be faced with a barrier they couldn't break through? "Hey," Lena whispered, her voice shaky but full of determination. "It's okay. I'm here. We're safe here." Bella's wide eyes locked onto hers, and for the briefest of moments, the frantic energy in the dog's body softened. Bella stepped closer, her tail tucked between her legs, her body still tense but not quite as frantic. Lena slowly crouched down and began to stroke the dog's fur, each movement deliberate, soothing. "I'm here, Bella," Lena repeated, her voice soft and steady. We'll get through this. The hours that followed were long, and though Bella wasn't as panicked as before, there was still an underlying unease that Lena couldn't quite shake. She stayed close to Bella, offering reassurance in the quiet moments, trying to comfort the dog who seemed to slowly return to herself, though still wary, still waiting for something that Lena couldn't understand. Eventually, Bella curled up beside Lena on the couch, her body trembling slightly but calmer than before. They sat in silence, Lena's hand gently resting on Bella's back. Lena felt an unfamiliar weight settle in her chest, a mixture of fear and love, uncertainty and hope. This wasn't just a test for Bella. This was a test for Lena too. She had no answers, no certainty that everything would be okay, but she knew one thing for sure. They had come this far together and they would keep going. Whatever fear Bella carried, whatever uncertainties they faced, Lena would stand by her. She would be the calm to Bella's storm, just as Bella had been the steady presence Lena had never known she needed. Together they would face whatever came next, because this was the kind of trust that went beyond fear. It was built on the foundation of their shared journey. And Lena knew that no matter how difficult it was, no matter how many tests lay ahead, they could weather them together. It had been days since that unsettling evening when Bella's panic had taken over, and Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between them. Though Bella had returned to her usual, more settled self in the days that followed, the event had left both of them with a deeper understanding of the bond they shared, and the delicate nature of trust. For the first time in months, Lena noticed how much she had grown too. She hadn't simply become a better dog owner. She had become more patient, more attuned to her own emotions and how they mirrored Bella's. It wasn't just about calming the dog, it was about learning to calm herself as well. They had both been tested, and although the experience had been harrowing, it had also deepened their connection. On the weekend, Lena decided it was time for a change. She had been thinking about taking a trip for some time now, a short weekend getaway to clear her mind. The week had been chaotic at work, and she was craving the kind of peace that could only come from time away. But she couldn't bring herself to leave Bella alone in the apartment, not after everything that had happened. She had tried to make arrangements with a dog sitter, but Bella's fear from the previous episode had made her hesitant to leave. That's when it struck her. Maybe what they both needed was to face something together. Something that would help them heal, something that would allow them to reclaim the trust they had begun to build in their own way. "Let's go for a walk," Lena said aloud as if the words were a new promise to both of them. Bella perked up immediately, her ears twitching at the sound of Lena's voice. She had grown used to Lena's usual routines, but this was different. Lena wasn't just offering a walk, she was offering an adventure. A chance to take a step into the unknown, to explore new places and begin again in a way that felt fresh. They packed lightly, leaving the apartment with a few essentials: water, treats, and most importantly each other. The weather had cleared up, and the sun cast a warm glow over the streets, promising a day full of possibilities. Lena had heard about a nearby park, a sprawling space full of trails, open fields, and quiet corners perfect for a peaceful escape. It wasn't far from their apartment, but it felt like a world away. And for the first time in a long time, Lena allowed herself to believe that they could go on this journey together. As they arrived at the park, the soft crunch of gravel beneath their feet marked the beginning of their adventure. Bella seemed tentative at first, her eyes scanning the open space, but there was a noticeable shift in her demeanor. The anxious energy from the other night had subsided, replaced by curiosity and wonder. Her tail wagged slowly at first, then more confidently as they ventured farther along the trail. The park was nearly empty, save for a few joggers and dog owners walking along similar paths. The air was fresh with the scent of pine and earth, the cool breeze a refreshing contrast to the stuffy apartment they had left behind. Lena breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of the last few weeks, of all the uncertainty and fear, begin to lift with every step they took. This was their moment together. A new beginning, one step at a time. As they walked, Lena couldn't help but notice how much more relaxed Bella seemed. Her body was no longer tense. Her steps were lighter, her eyes more alert with excitement rather than anxiety. She occasionally stopped to sniff at the ground, her tail wagging whenever she found a particularly interesting scent. Bella was learning to let go of the past, to trust in the present. Lena smiled watching her. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, the kind of happiness that made her realize how far they had come. It wasn't just Bella who had changed, it was Lena too. She had grown more attuned to her own needs, more willing to let go of control and let life unfold naturally. She had learned that life wasn't about perfection, but about the shared moments of joy and connection. Moments like this one. After a while, they reached a quiet spot near a small creek. The sound of the flowing water was soothing, and Bella immediately trotted over to the edge to dip her paws into the cool stream. Lena found a large rock to sit on, watching her dog play in the water, her joy infectious. There was something profoundly peaceful about this moment, something that felt like a turning point in their journey together. They were no longer a human and a dog struggling to find their way. They were a team, each offering what the other needed. Bella returned to Lena's side, her paws wet and her face bright with happiness. She sat beside her human, curling up at her feet as if to say, "This is where I belong." Lena reached down to scratch behind Bella's ears, smiling. "I'm so proud of you, girl," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You've come so far." Bella's tail gave a small thump against the ground in response, and Lena couldn't help but laugh softly. It was a sound of pure contentment, of a bond that had only strengthened with time. The sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the park as the two of them remained there, quietly enjoying each other's company. The weight of the world seemed far away in that moment, and for the first time in a long time, Lena allowed herself to simply be. No work to worry about, no anxiety to confront. Just Bella, the sound of the creek and the fading light. Lena realized that this was what it meant to truly heal. It wasn't about having all the answers or about finding a quick fix for the problems that life threw at her. It was about being present, about facing each challenge with someone by your side who understood what it meant to trust, to love, and to grow together. This wasn't just a walk in the park, it was the next chapter in their journey. A chapter where they both took the first step toward embracing the unknown, with all its uncertainties and rewards. As they made their way back to the apartment, Bella walked beside her, no longer the cautious dog who had first stepped into Lena's life months ago. She was stronger now, her confidence blooming like a flower, and Lena could see the transformation in her every time their eyes met. And as they walked through the door back into their home, Lena knew that this was more than just a new beginning. It was the continuation of a journey that neither of them would ever have to face alone. Together, they had found a way to move forward, to face their fears and embrace their bond with a renewed sense of hope. No matter what the future held, Lena and Bella knew one thing for sure. They were ready to face it together.